Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be comparing a 2020 Mazda 3 to a 2020 Mazda CX-30, and both these are in the premium package, by the way. But first and foremost, a huge shout out and thank you to Southtown Mazda for providing us with both cars. Check out their inventory in the link below. Let's just get right into it. Let's go into the hoods of both of the Mazdas. So starting with the CX-30, we have a naturally aspirated 2.5 liter 4-cylinder that goes through a 6-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy is 25 around town and 32 on the highway. Power output's 186 horsepower, 186 pound-feet of torque. Coming over to the Mazda 3, completely identical engine setup. So 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, 6-speed automatic transmission. The only difference is the fuel economy is 25 around town and 33 on the highway, so you get 1 mile per gallon better on the highway. This one, by the way, has the all-wheel drive system. Power outputs are identical, 186 horsepower, 186 pound-feet of torque. Now let's go over the front ends of both the CX-30 and the Mazda 3. By the way, the Mazda 3 is finished in machine gray metallic. The CX-30 is finished in polymetal gray metallic. Definitely prefer that color of the machine gray. I just think it's just a more unique color. It's kind of like a bluish gray. But regardless, coming over to the CX-30 itself, just kind of notice all the elements with the hood and then the front end. You do get these really nice LED lights, and then you got Mazda's signature front end with the grille. You got kind of like the plastic molding at the bottom, obviously, so that you can take it off-road and it's not going to damage all the nice stuff at the top portion of it. Now looking over here at the Mazda 3, you notice that it looks pretty much all identical. The only difference is everything's just a little bit smaller, not by much, but just a little bit. But the biggest difference is the Mazda 3 is lower to the ground, and it doesn't have that plastic molding at the bottom because it's not intended to be taken off-road like the CX-30. Now let's go over the tire and rim setup. So you've got two 15mm tires over here and over there, 18-inch rims, 18-inch rims. It is all identical. And notice even the design on the rims for both of them. Again, everything is the same with them. Now you will notice that you've got this plastic fender flare right here, whereas the Mazda 3 does not have that. And then you do notice the ground clearance difference. I mean, this has so much more ground clearance. Again, you got like the crossover, and then you have the sedan. Now notice that that plastic molding continues all along the side of the CX-30 to the back. And then you can see the Mazda 3, but you guys can see the biggest difference is obviously the height between the two. Now here is the key fob on the CX-30. You've got a couple functions. You've got the lock at the top, the unlock, and then you have the release for the hatch, which that's what we're going to pop open right now. So we just have to hold that, and then that is what will open it up. Notice that it is power lift, which is pretty neat. Now coming in here to the rear, notice that you've got a good amount of storage space here in the CX-30. All the floor mats are back here, and they do say CX-30 on it. Now there's this little loop right here that you can pick up, and notice that the spare tire is just underneath there. And then you also can put a cargo cover in here if you'd like, which is a nice little feature you can add. And then finally, you can lock the car from up here, and then also you can lower down the rear hatch, all just from that little button. Now here is the key fob for the Mazda 3. Notice that it is identical with all of the functions. So we're gonna hold this, and notice that yes, it pretty much halfway pops open, but at least it pops open part of the way. Now you just have to lift the rest of it up just by yourself, which I mean is super easy. It's very light. Now here is the opening. Notice that since this is not a hatch, you don't get as much storage space. You can get a Mazda 3 hatchback, which will be more similar in storage space to the CX-30, just so you guys know. And then here are the floor mats that come with it, and then you can see the rest of the storage space in the trunk. Now if you pick up the loop here in the Mazda 3, notice that again you get a little spare tire right there. And then in terms of lowering this down, you do have to just lower it down with your hand. Now let's finish things up with the rear of both of the cars. We're gonna start over with the CX-30. So the biggest difference you're gonna notice again is gonna be the height here in the rear, but you get the dual outlet exhausts, and notice how the bumper setup looks here in the back of the CX-30. And then also notice the taillights themselves. So you do get LED taillights, but just notice kind of like the design and shape on them. Now coming over here to the Mazda 3, obviously it's lower to the ground since it's a sedan. You still get the dual outlet exhaust tips. The bumper setup is just different. They're kind of like not completely covered by the bumper. And then the taillights here, notice that those look completely different. So you can kind of have like the double set of taillights, whereas this one is just one singular taillight. So that's a huge difference between the two, but that is pretty much everything for the back of both the cars. Now coming to the back of the CX-30, here's the door panel for the rear. So it's actually really nice. You get all this nice padding here on the door panel itself, and then where you're gonna rest your arm as well. They've got some stitching. One of the speakers to the sound system. And here are what the seats look like in the back of the CX-30 itself. And then notice that the stitching, they just did black stitching to match everything. You do get this little area where pulls out to be a couple of cup holders. And then over here basically is just a couple of vents for the rear passengers. Now, remember the legroom, you're gonna notice that it's gonna be pretty much identical between the two vehicles, but that's the back of the CX-30. Coming over to the Mazda 3, notice that the door panel looks pretty similar to the CX-30, except this one has the white interior, so you got this nice accenting at the top. But this is all pretty similar on the door panel, and the window sticker kind of got in the way, whoops. But here is the seat itself, again, full white leather, and they do the stitching to match, which is really nice. Notice that the legroom though is all identical. They've got the cup holder set up. No vents though for the rear passenger, even though these both have the premium package. But yeah, notice that in general the back area looks pretty much identical. Now coming up front, we do have the keyless entry, and this does have blind spot monitoring. Now looking at the door panel here at the front, it looks pretty similar to the one in the back. You even have like the cool like leather thing that comes up to the top, and then also with the armrest itself. All of your controls for the windows and mirror controls as well. We do get the Bose sound system in this, and then here is the seat at the front. So same materials as what the seats are made out of in the back, just the bolstering is a little bit more aggressive, which is nice. It'll keep you in place when you do sporty driving or when you take it off-road. There's the power adjustments on the side of the seat. Here's what the pedals look like down at the bottom, and then you get the release for the hood. And then over here you do have some interesting stuff. So that's just for the hatch in the back. Your memory seat functions pretty normal. This is for some of the safety tech. And then this is pretty cool because that's kind of like your hill climb assist, which, I mean, again, that's pretty neat that this has it. But again, this is supposed to be an off-road SUV. You do get keyless entry here with the front of the Mazda 3. There is blind spot monitoring as well. Opening up the door itself, looking at the door panel, notice this is identical to pretty much what's in the back of the Mazda 3. You got the same soft touch down here. And then over here you do have the little controls for the windows, and then your mirror adjustments, Bose sound system as well. If you look at the seats, these seats are pretty much identical to what's in the CX-30, just white leather. And then over here you've got your adjustments for the seats on the side. And then just down below you've got the adjustments for the pedals. And then over here you've got the memory seats, and then the release for the trunk, and then the stability control button where you have like the hill climb assist in the CX-30, which is pretty interesting. To start up the CX-30, just have to put your foot on the brake, push the push start, and then all of the gauges will start up, infotainment system will start up, and most importantly, the climate controls, because it's hot outside today. Here's the steering wheel in the CX-30. So you've got your cruise control over here on this side, and it does have the adaptive cruise control function, which is pretty neat. And then over here you've got like your volume controls, and then the controls for the radio, all that kind of stuff. I really like the design of the steering wheel in general. So they do black stitching in the center of the steering wheel, but I just like how it's like small in the center, and they kind of have just like the big circle that goes around instead of having the center just be absolutely massive. Just a really nice feel and look to it in general. But over there you've got the stock for the lights, windshield wiper stock, and then notice that you do have the paddle shifters in the back if you want to shift the gears yourself with that 6-speed automatic. You do hold down the plus paddle if you want to go out of the manual shift mode. Now coming into here, notice that you've got the little center gauge cluster, and right, it's giving you different bits of information. So right now it's telling me that I'm low on fuel, for example, but you can basically just scroll through and it gives you different bits of information on the CX-30 itself. Pretty easy to use, and I think it has a really nice modern look to it. Here's the infotainment system in the CX-30. So if we pop in reverse, that is the camera that pops up, and the mirrors actually tilt down as well, which is a pretty nice feature. But you can see the resolution on it is really solid. Now going from the camera itself, you control everything via a dial with the infotainment system. Pretty easy to use. Notice that if I press anything, it is not a touchscreen, so it's all controlled via the dial itself. But they got a bunch of nice shortcut buttons, so I can press the home button, for example, navigation button, all that kind of stuff. I'll show you the buttons in a moment. But I think it's a good looking infotainment system, and it's easy to control. Here's the controls for the climate control system. It is a dual zone climate in the CX-30. Really simple to use, and I like that they have a separate little area for it. And then there are heated seats here at the front, little stop start button, and then there's some extra storage down there at the bottom, couple of cup holders. Now here is the shifter for the 6-speed automatic. Really easy to use, and then you can manually shift if you want, or you can use the paddle shifters, whichever you prefer. And then here are the controls for that infotainment system. So you got the dial, and then you have like all of the little shortcut buttons all around. For example, your parking brake is right in that little area as well, and then your auto hold. And then this is the center console. So it's got leather at the top, and then notice that there's a good amount of storage space within the center console as well. And then you can like slide it forward if you want. And then finally, we do have the glove box, which which in terms of storage space, I mean, it's pretty solid. Then you got the owner's manual right inside of there. Sunglass holder up here at the top, which is pretty neat. And then you do have the sunroof, which lets a ton of light into the cabin, and leather colored headliner, and well, that's all for the top. The Mazda 3 here, just have to push the push start. Does that cool little Mazda 3 graphic. Infotainment system pops on, and the climate controls. There's a steering wheel in the Mazda 3, so notice that you got the same controls over here, and on the other side, steering wheel design is all the same. So I'm gonna kind of go over things in the Mazda 3 a little bit quicker, because again, you notice that everything is pretty much identical on the interior. You even have the same stalks on the back, paddle shifters as well, all that's identical. And then here in the little center stack, again, this is gonna be all the same as what is in the CX-30, so nothing is changed right there. Same look, same setup, all of that. If we go up to the infotainment system, this is all the same as what's in the CX-30. Pretty straightforward right there. I mean, the infotainment system, all of that functions the same, and it all looks the same as well. Now, coming down from the infotainment system into the climate control area, this again is all the same. You even have like all the same storage areas, all that kind of stuff. The shifter, all that's the same, all the controls in this little area. I did forget to mention the drive modes. Now notice that there's just two different drive modes. There's the normal, and then there's a sport. You got the sport on, and then you got the sport off. Pretty simple setup. Center console, again, it's identical to what's in the CX-30, and then the glove box as well. Oh, if it'll pop open, there you go. It's the same, still get the vents, still get the soft touch at the dash. And then even up top here, notice that this is all the same, even with the little sunroof, and the headliner is the same color. Now let's quickly go over pricing. This Mazda 3 with the all-wheel drive stickers for $29,120, and then this CX-30 stickers for $30,700. Now, the reason I'm getting the exact MSRP is so you guys can see the exact difference in price between the two, since they're priced so close. Now, just like always, we have to pick a winner between the two vehicles, and the winner that I'm actually going to pick is going to be the CX-30. Now, the reason that I'm picking the CX-30 as the winner is it's just a more practical vehicle overall, right? You get the hatch. They both have all-wheel drive, right? They both have all-wheel drive capability, but you get the hatch with this a little bit higher off the ground as well, and it's not that much more money, so you get a lot more capability, in my opinion, for not that much more money. So I feel like it's a really solid value. So if you were comparing these two, I would lean a little bit more towards the CX-30. Now, if you want a little bit more of a fun, sporty, to-the-ground driving experience, then yes, the Mazda 3 is going to beat out the CX-30. But if you just want a more practical vehicle, the CX-30 is going to win. And again, that'll sum things up. A huge shout out and thank you again to the Mazda here in Southtown for providing us with both vehicles. Check out their inventory on the link below. I'll see all of you in the next video.